Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and welcome to another episode of WAM News Live. And we're going to be going into a lot of stories right away. First, I'm in Canada for a few days. I got my terrible Tim Hortons coffee here. I also wanted to do a shout out to the folks at the Red Pill Expo, who there were a couple. They gave me a cool pen that lights up. That's www.womenandteens.com. Appreciate the pen. It's pretty cool. And another big shout out to all the people that worked on the Red Pill Expo, all the people that I met out there. It was a great time. Good time in New York City. Good time in Montreal as well. It's been a busy busy week, I guess. Busy year overall, but nonetheless, it's been really amazing, and I've enjoyed every moment of it, even though it is slightly stressful getting around. Anyway, so I'm waiting for some people to get online, and once we get more people tuning in, then I will get straight to the stories. I'm just trying to make it work here so that the screen fits in the frame better, because I'm looking at it and there's a big black line along the edge of the screen here for some reason. So let me see here. Stuff like that bothers me. Is that better? I think that might be better. Anyway, so there's so many things in the news right now, including Iran. There's so many things in the news right now, including the financial system, endless issues, and there's a lot of solutions, but we're going to get into a bit of that right away. I got my squeaky chair here. I'm ready to go, and I see some people tuning in. 3-star Mur says, huh? Yeah. Shake says, hey, buddy. Hello to you. 25 out of 128,000 people watching. All right, we're moving. But anyway, I'm going to bring up the first story here, and we'll go at it because this is a really important one that I think everyone should be focusing on at this moment, because it's really, it says a lot about where we're going in the near future. So, get this loaded up. And remember, as I do things here at WAM on these live shows, I report on it live, then I cut it out after. So don't go anywhere when I sign out. I will still be here when I sign out to take your questions, etc. Of course, Super Chats go to the top. And if anyone wants to help out, as we are getting completely demonetized here on YouTube and just getting stifled and suffocated, we could use any help we can get. So Super Chats help, and this is our Bitcoin address. If anyone wants to send us tips, we really do appreciate it. Anyway, let's get to the first story. All right, so many of you have seen the news recently about Iran, and we talked about this story a couple weeks ago before it got even more heated, talking about the attempt by the United States to go to war with Iran. And interestingly enough, this is so much like what we saw in Vietnam with the Gulf of Tonkin incident, now the Gulf of Oman incident. And this is an article we went through last time we talked about this story. We got stuff like this that is coming out in the news a lot lately, like how Iran was swindled out of $3.2 trillion and how much the insane amount of oil in Iran. It's not surprising to any of us that we're seeing a country with a lot of oil get targeted. We see this one sentence here. At stake is the allocation of revenues from the wider Caspian Basin's area, including both onshore and offshore fields, that is conservatively estimated to have around 48 billion barrels of oil and 292 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. And, of course, that puts a big target on countries. But there's more to it than just oil, and we're going to get into that later. There's so much at stake here. Iran has been a target for years, and we're going to get into more articles right away. But first, I want to just talk about the fact that you go back to 1952, 1953, reinstalling the Shah, the coup against Iran, these countless attacks on Iran. They attempt to, fund and arm Iraq against Iran, like, the Mujahideen / Al-Qaeda were funded and armed against the Soviets, who were funded and armed against the Germans, who were propped up in the election of Hitler as chancellor, again, caused by the U.S. We can't forget about the Lusitania back leading into World War One. The Vietnamese were armed and funded under FDR for their communist nationalist movement. When is this going to end? I mean, you just have this cycle of create problem, come in with reaction, scare people, mislead people, and then come in with a solution, which is more problems. And it's just a never-ending cycle of mass murder. And it saddens me to see people continuously fall for it. But are we falling for it anymore? I don't know. That's a big question here that we need to go into. But, of course, a couple weeks ago, this article, May 24th, talked about how the Pentagon will send 1,500 troops along with drones and fighter jets to the Middle East to counter Iran threat. I'm not sure if that's quite a threat, but of course this is in the news a lot. The tanker. It was all over the news recently, and this attempt to claim that Iran is shot a torpedo at some Japanese ship. Like, we're supposed to actually believe that. Does that not sound a little familiar to the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which we now know was completely fabricated? No, but we're supposed to fall for it this time. This time, it's legit. No. And you can see the holes in the side. We're going to go into this in a moment, but the holes in the side of this boat, clearly not from torpedoes. Anyone that's an expert on, what a hole from a torpedo looks like will say that's not from a torpedo. Anyway, let's go into a few of these stories regarding this incident. U.S. says video shows Iranian military removing mine from tanker. This is a story that's going around a lot. This is some of their so-called evidence. And it's so absurdly ridiculous. U.S. Secretary of State accuses Tehran of lashing out, but Iran denies responsibility. The U.S. military has released video footage which it says shows an Iranian military patrol boat approaching one of two tankers attacked in the Gulf of Oman to support the Trump administration's claims that Iran was responsible. The blurry black and white footage taken from the air shows a small military boat alongside the Japanese-owned Kokuka Courageous and someone standing up on the prow of the boat to remove an object from the tanker's hull. The boat then pulls away from the tanker. U.S. officials were quoted as saying the boat was Iranian Revolutionary Guard patrol boat approaching the tanker after it was attacked on Thursday, and the object removed was an unexploded limpet mine. It was unclear whether it was being alleged the Iranian sailors were detaching the mine in order to remove evidence. Thursday's attacks increased tensions between the U.S. and Iran, which are locked in a standoff after Washington imposed economic sanctions on Tehran in an attempt to force the renegotiation of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. I thought something that stood out that was quite interesting regarding this story was a Facebook post by Greg Palast. And as it says here in this Facebook post, I just re-quoted him. It says, the Iranian boat came to the rescue of the attacked ship. Trump's claim that they were removing mine evidence in broad daylight is a joke. Look out, we are the punchline. The Straits are Iran's lifeline. Without it, Iran dies. No way would they commit economic suicide, nor would Iran sabotage their meeting with Japan's Abe, whom Iran invited to Tehran to help restart negotiations. And if you're going to sneak in to plant or retrieve a mine, as the Israelis can tell you, you use mini subs or Klepper kayaks, not big patrol boats that U.S. satellites can photograph. Iran is a fascist theocracy, but not a stupid fascist theocracy. Does anyone smell Gulf of Tonkin? If you're too young to get that reference, Google it. And that's a very important point to make. I mean, obviously, it's almost parallel with what we saw in Vietnam, which led to this war that countless people died from chemical bombs dropped on children. And reminding me of chemical bombs dropped on children, which the U.S. is definitely the MVP of, it reminds me also of Syria and how people are just not buying that narrative because obviously Tillerson says, we are going to work with Assad and we are no longer going after Assad. And 3 days or 4 days later, for no reason, according to the U.S. military, U.S. government, military-industrial complex, Assad decides to bomb and chemical gas his own people for no reason. For no reason at all. Absolutely zero reason. But Oh, well, the U.S. Government says it, so it must be true. And then a year later, again, the U.S. is like, oh, we're going to leave Assad alone. And like almost to the date, 3 days later, um, uh, Assad, for absolutely no reason, blows up his own people again with chemical bombs, killing countless people, shooting himself in the foot. There's absolutely no sense behind it. They're like, he's a madman. Well, yeah, he'd have to be like an insane madman when he's trying to, sustain his own regime, and then for absolutely no reason would just blow up his own people. It's so insanely absurd that anyone would believe this. Now we see this article here from Zero Hedge. Think media won't help lead U.S. into war with Iran based on false intelligence? Looks like they already are, and this is a great example. I mean, they're making claims that this is what we're seeing. This is what is happening because, whatever happened to questioning the government when the government says something. Haven't we been through enough? The MVP of lying, the MVP of murder, the MVP of pollution, the MVP of theft, the MVP of kidnapping, the government. Why would they lie about something that would benefit them if they were able to succeed in fooling the populace? Why would that happen? Well, for a multitude of reasons. And obviously, we're going to see more of this pushed on us like we saw with Iraq. But the difference between now and with Iraq was that now we have YouTube, now we have Facebook, now we have social medias, now we have independent medias that can reach more people. And anyone can spend 2 seconds looking this up. And if people couldn't really talk with an Iraqi leading into the Iraq war, you can talk to someone in Iran today on the internet in a few seconds. What happened there? What do you see there? Well, they'll tell you. But this is from May 10th. Again, going back, CNBC, the U.S. is sending another warship and more missiles to the Middle East amid Iran tensions. Well, isn't it interesting that this is all, like, it would all seem to be pre-planned. It's like they're piecing together a puzzle perfectly, as we heard in the 7 countries situation with General Wesley Clark years ago. Iran's on that list, that they'll conquer all these countries in a certain amount of years. And I think the only one that's left really right now is Iran. And the U.S. has been trying to overthrow Iran and destroy Iran for decades, putting military bases around Iran, pointing guns at Iran. And then when Iran finally goes, hey, stop it, we're going to do something if you keep poking us, they're like, look, warmongers, they're trying to kill people, they're horrible, they're a dictatorship. It's insane. But again, Iran has denied the claim that they were involved in this attack. They say, this article says, Iran says U.S. has no shred of factual or circumstantial evidence that Tehran attacked oil tankers. And it makes no sense that they would. Why would they? It makes absolutely no sense. They're trying to form an alliance with Japan, and they're just like, oh, we're just going to blow up their ships for no reason. It's so insanely ridiculous. And as this article from CNN says, Trump National Security Team expected to discuss sending more U.S. military force to Middle East in wake of tanker attack. Of course, there was even talk a month ago before this happened that they wanted to send as much as 150,000 troops to the area. So much for non-interventionist president. The president has no say. This is a military-industrial complex, and it's gone on for a very, very long time, folks. And then there's this claim that I just saw on ABC News. Iran attempted to shoot down U.S. drone over tanker attack site in Gulf of Oman. This claim that, on top of that, they tried to shoot down a drone. Where's our evidence? Well, the government said so, so you can't question the government or you're non-patriotic. It continues on and on. I'm not going to go into all these articles because it's long-winded, but it says Iran attempted to shoot down a U.S. drone that was surveilling the attack of 2 tankers hit in the Gulf of Oman on Thursday morning, U.S. Central Command said. The attempt missed the MQ-9 Reaper by approximately 1 kilometer. The Japanese-owned Kokuka Courageous, along with another tanker, the Front Altar, were damaged by mines that the U.S. said Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had placed on the ship's hulls. You're not going to get away with this, guys, because, hey, look at this. The Japanese company, as this Washington Times article says, the Japanese company says flying object, not Iranian mine, struck tanker in Middle East. And they have been going against the claim that it was Iran. The owner of the ship itself was like, no, this had nothing to do with Iran. The president of the Japanese company Kokuka Sangyo, the international shipping firm that operated one of the 2 oil tankers allegedly attacked by Iran's forces Thursday, said Friday their ship was not the target of a strike ordered by Tehran. Company president Yutaka Katada said the damage incurred to the MT Kokuka Courageous oil tanker during its voyage through the Gulf of Oman was caused by a flying object and not a maritime explosive device, based on eyewitness accounts from crew members aboard the vessel at the time of the attack. And I quote, "I do not think there was a time bomb or an object attached to the side of the ship," Mr. Katada said. The New York Times first reported Mr. Katada's comments regarding Thursday's attack. Further, the company chief said there was zero possibility that they were torpedoes or mines or any other sea-based munition that caused the damage aboard the MT Kokuka Courageous. His statements come hours after British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt said London has no reason not to believe the American assessment that the MT Kokuka Courageous and the Norwegian-flagged MT Altair were attacked by Iranian forces. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Thursday that Washington had irrefutable evidence of Iranian involvement in the tanker attacks. Well, of course, the British foreign intelligence, which work alongside the U.S. in the whole reign of the military-industrial complex worldwide, this globalist entity destroying countries and killing millions of people, of course they're going to be like, oh, we have no reason not to believe them. Well, I mean, the individuals on the ground, the pawns that are being used as sacrifice for the king and the queen might have a different take on that, guys. We're supposed to believe this lying entity called the state that has killed all these millions of people, and we find out every single time it was based on lies. Every single time. And we think this time might be different. Well, I don't think so. I've seen a lot of evidence lately by people simply going, yeah, this is all complete nonsense. I don't buy this. The people are waking up. The vast majority of people, when stuff like this happens, including with Syria, say, you know what? I think this is a false flag. I think the government does have a reason to benefit from this, and I think they are basically creating order out of chaos. The mainstream person doesn't believe this. When I talk to someone who's like your regular average soccer mom, bring the kids to school, that kind of person, go to work, you talk to them and they're like, yeah, I don't believe that. But the news is like, this is what's happening, this is what's happening, this is what's happening, over and over and over again. Believe it, believe it, believe it. If we repeat it enough, you might repeat it with us and, chant the mantra and regurgitate nonsense that you know nothing about. As reason to go to war and kill all these people. Soldiers themselves aren't buying it. The individuals, people, aren't buying it. Government is showing itself more and more all the time in the age of information to be an organized crime racket, hell-bent on creating vast subservience throughout all mankind, creating vast chaos and fear in order to use little puppet strings on the people and convince them to give away every single remaining freedom they personally have obtained over the years. It is a really sick world we live in, but people are learning, and that's why we're seeing a vast move of desperation by the state and the mainstream propaganda racket, Edward Bernays type propaganda racket we see in the mainstream media, where they're doing everything possible to stop independent medias from getting the word out about these things. Look at even Julian Assange. There's a guy who's a real journalist. He's sharing information that might be considered illegal to some people, but it's factual. It's the truth. Imagine living in a time where the government's like, yeah, but the truth is not beneficial to us, so people need to go to jail or be killed for sharing that truth. That sounds about right to me, actually. That's the way government acts in all cases. It's like, oh, well, people are exposing horrible criminal acts by us, mass murder, like with Bradley Manning, Chelsea Manning, where there's video footage of them blowing up innocent people walking down the streets, and they try to run away, and they got kids, and they blow that up and blow up a van with children in it. And just absolute disgusting chaos and massacring innocent people. And most of these people, in many cases, are under the age of like 16. It's so horrible. And people are sitting comfortably overseas, like, oh yeah, well, they're a threat to our freedom. No, they're not. The biggest threat to your freedom is a state. Nothing is even coming close to a threat to your individual freedom than the state itself. You think Iran has the ability to attack the United States? Why would they do that? They would be blown into nothing. Iraq was armed and funded by the U.S. against Iran, causing one of the bloodiest wars in history. Things are getting peaceful, a bit more peaceful in the Middle East, in that region right now. Iraqi Kurdistan is a great example. And Iran, a lot of people, I mean, obviously there's problems, but those problems come from the state and all that kind of stuff. But the major problems that are facing those countries right now are not the people on the ground who for no reason would attack the U.S. because they won't. It's these foreign forces that are surrounding their country with military and pointing guns at their heads. What do you expect them to do? Not defend themselves? Give themselves up to vast war and chaos so that the monetary system is sustained for a bit longer within the United States and globally through the IMF, all that kind of stuff, or the oil racket is able to sustain itself for a bit longer while governments force crazy regulations and taxes on us saying that it's for our environment, even though the government's the biggest polluter in the world. Oh, but someone chemical gas children. So we need to, us, the U.S. government, who chemical gas more children than any government in the world, need to blow up more children to teach them a lesson. It's like, just think of the mental gymnastics it takes to buy this nonsense. It's so sickening, and as long as we continue to perpetuate this problem by believing it, the more death and destruction we'll see, the more people coming back with PTSD, the more people killing themselves, the more... a great example, by the way, I gotta bring this up, is when Ron Paul was running for president. Anyone remember that, he got more contributions from active military personnel than all of the other Republican candidates and Obama combined? Anyone remember that? There's a reason for that. And there's a reason why every president during the campaign runs on a non-interventionist platform. It's because it's popular to not blow up children. Imagine that. But then every time they try to sneak it in, Clinton, Bush, Obama dropping more bombs than any president in history, Trump about to beat that record, by the way. But everyone in every case is like, oh, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, so Obama blowing up these children, I was anti-war under Bush, but I'm sure he has a reason. We'll wait and see, or I'm just going to ignore this because I don't know anything about it because the news isn't telling me that. Or, Trump, oh, well, I was anti-war under Bush and Obama, but now it's like, oh, well, Trump has, it's 4D chess. There's something that's happening. It's all good. Just wait and see. Trust the plan, as they say. It's just perpetuation of propaganda and being able to convince the public or fool the public into accepting vast destruction, vast poverty, all apathetically. I remember when Trump said that he was going to pull troops out of the Syrian region, and everyone's like, great. And I'm like, there might be something more to this because the government doesn't do anything that it doesn't personally benefit from. Military-industrial complex, etc. Trump doesn't even have a say over all that. Really, seriously, he doesn't. One person isn't going to be like, well, you're going to do this, and the military-industrial complex is going to be like, oh, yes, I'll do whatever you say, God Emperor Trump. That's not how that works. And then, like a week later, he's like, well, actually, we will keep troops in Syria to protect Israel and to protect the world. His quote exactly, to protect Israel and to protect the world. And CNN, Fox News, no one covers it. Because CNN only covers negative stories about Trump that are nonsense to rile up the Trump support, while Fox News will just toe whatever line he says, other than like Shepard Smith or something like that. And it's so crazy. It's the perfect playing against each other propaganda tactic, and everyone keeps falling for it. I mean, Fox News, CNN, clashing against each other, left and right, both wrong, both incredibly wrong, setting you in the wrong direction, misdirecting you. And now they're trying to crack down on YouTube, Install mainstream media entirely on YouTube. So when you search things up, almost the only things that you'll find are the mainstream media. Make sure that independent medias are destroyed. They're deleting tens of thousands of accounts, demonetizing tens of thousands of accounts, including our friend Dan Dix at Press for Truth. They're trying to destroy us because they know that we are winning the information war. We are. And they're desperate. They need to perpetuate this system because they know that if the Iraq War happened today, it would be minimal in comparison to what it really was because we have the information at our fingertips and there's no excuses anymore. So anyway, we'll see the mainstream media try to perpetuate this. I'm not sure if it will work. I have a feeling it won't just because of the amount of people that are like, nah, this is an obvious nonsense story. Iran isn't trying to attack us. Obviously, this is the exact same scenario as the Vietnam War, Gulf of Tonkin incident. Just the Gulf of Oman incident, Oman incident or whatever. And why would they shoot themselves in the foot for absolutely no reason? You got to think about that. And I think we will be okay. But for now, we need to push the pressure on the states saying we do not buy your propaganda nonsense. Iran isn't going to attack us. It's absolutely ridiculous. We must avoid in all areas any conflict with this country to go sacrifice a bunch of children, young kids over there using young kids from over here as pawns. You know, why don't these government officials just go out and duel? Go and have duels. It's ridiculous. So anyway, we will continuously cover this subject because it's sickening as it's right on. We're reaching a climax here, and it's really, really dangerous, and we're entering very dangerous territory. We cannot allow it to happen. So we'll continuously cover this subject going forward. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right, guys, still here. Don't go away. Let's see here. We got some comments coming in. Again, as we do this, what we do is we, do a report live, and then we cut it, then we talk to you, then we do another report live and all that kind of stuff. We're going to be taking these videos and putting them up individually after on YouTube as separate reports to give us more time to focus on things like my documentary I'm trying to edit right now. But anyway, definitely a little tired today. Got my Tim Hortons. Last few weeks, it's been nonstop travel, running around the country, both the United States and Canada in the last month. Spain, France, Germany, Morocco, Western Sahara, Mauritania. I don't even know. It's just getting to the point where it's like a blur. A month ago feels like a year ago. But I guess that's a good thing. Anyway, I do see we got a super chat from My Name Is Milk. Who says, keep up the good work, send Australian $2. Thank you very much. Super chats make a huge difference here at WAM, especially as they're cracking down. We don't know how much longer we're going to be around as a channel. Pretty sure that in the next few months, especially entering the 2020 election cycle, as we saw with the 2016 election cycle, they cracked down really hard. They use that as an excuse, and they normalize the censorship and the muzzling of independent media. And Dan Dix at Press for Truth just got demonetized entirely, and tens of thousands of channels got taken down. We're entering a really shady time for media. We got to do whatever we can to ensure the future of independent media is alive far into the future. I want to go into a few other stories here. I want to get the right articles up here. Let's see. I had something funny on Bernie Sanders. I got so many articles up here. I have no idea. But again, if anyone has super chats, send the super chats our way. It helps a lot. It keeps us alive, and we'll answer your questions. It's harder to answer all the questions, especially as we're doing these reports. I'm going to get into the next video report here and see where it goes. All right. So, 3, 2... All right, as this Zero Hedge article says, Bernie plagiarizes Stalin with economic Bill of Rights. And as the article goes into, 2020 presidential hopeful Bernie Sanders, who thinks America would be delighted to pay more in taxes, touted his economic Bill of Rights during a Wednesday speech about democratic socialism. Remember, this is the same guy who said, white people don't know what it's like to be poor. maybe not you, Bernie, but that's kind of a blanket statement. And it's totally crazy. But anyway, let's get into this more. Suggesting that he's destined to carry out FDR's proposed Economic Bill of Rights, which the former president was unable to enact due to an untimely death, Sanders pitched to the crowd on a 21st century economic Bill of Rights, as Red State's Elizabeth Vaughn reports. Yet, as political expert and radio host Mark Levin pointed out on Fox News' Hannity, Sanders has essentially plagiarized Joseph Stalin's 1936 Soviet Constitution and stolen his agenda. Here's an excerpt from Sanders' speech via Red State. And as it says, a Bill of Rights that establishes once and for all that every American, regardless of his or her income, is entitled to, this is the first bullet point, the right to a decent job that pays a living wage, the right to quality health care, the right to a complete education, the right to affordable housing, the right to a clean environment, the right to a secure retirement. These 6 rights, which define Sanders' platform, are indistinguishable from the rights identified in the 1936 Soviet Constitution, which is also known as the Stalin Constitution. Please read Articles 118 to 122 of this Constitution. And then it says, Article 118. Citizens of the USSR have the right to work, that is, are guaranteed the right to employment and payment for their work in accordance with its quantity and quality. Article 119. Citizens of the USSR have the right to rest and leisure. The right to rest and leisure is ensured by the reduction of the working day to 7 hours for the overwhelming majority of the workers, the institution of annual vacations with full pay for workers and employees, and the provision of a wide network of sanatoria, rest homes, and clubs for the accommodation of the working people. Article 120, citizens of the USSR have the right to maintenance in old age and also in case of sickness or loss of capacity to work. This right is ensured by the extensive development of social insurance of workers and employees at state expense, free medical service for the working people, and the provision of a wide network of health resorts for the use of the working people. Article 121, it says, citizens of the USSR have the right to education. This right is ensured by universal compulsory elementary education, by education including higher education being free of charge, by the system of state stipends for the overwhelming majority of students in the universities and colleges, by instruction in schools being conducted in the native language, and the organization in the factories, state farms, machine and tractor stations, and collective farms of free vocational, technical, and agronomic training for the working people. Article 122, women in the USSR are accorded equal rights with men in all spheres of economic, state, cultural, social, and political life. The possibility of exercising these rights is ensured to women by granting them an equal right with men to work, payment for work, rest and leisure, social insurance and education, and by state protection of the interests of mother and child, pre-maternity and maternity leave with full pay, and the provision of a wide network of maternity homes, nurseries, and kindergartens. And as Vaughn notes, it says, about the only thing Bernie didn't pluck from Stalin was the right to a clean environment, something humanity was far less concerned with in 1936. And as they call, green is the new communism in a lot of cases. But I want to go into this a bit deeper because, first of all, I recently confronted Bernie Sanders over his past support for the Soviet Union. He said that they were efficient, that the trains ran on time, the school system was phenomenal, all that kind of stuff when he went there. And he also honeymooned there, I believe. But I called him out on it at a speech recently. YouTube didn't let people see it. Shadow banned it completely. Had like 7,800 views. But anyway, I yelled at him about the tens of millions of people who died in the USSR. But I want to also mention, look, all these things sound nice. They sound nice, but are they as nice as they sound? The government always shakes shiny keys in front of people, hoping that people will say, yes, give us some of that. We want that. Because it's much more comfortable leaning back thinking that your mommy and daddy are going to give you things, give you free things. But at what expense? It all sounds nice until you actually get into the economics of it and the use of force to use against people to achieve these goals. And again, if you consider the fact that children spend most of their life in school and not much of their time with their parents, and including in that time with their parents, they're sleeping for about 7 hours on average, that tells you that they spend most of the time with school as their parent. They grow up believing in them as parents, and it makes them more dependent. And if they're more dependent, they're more weak, and they're more subservient to whatever the government does. And the government doesn't do anything that they don't personally benefit from. And we must remember that. So of course, they're going to try and tantalize us with free things. Let's look at this Bill of Rights that Bernie Sanders puts forward. The right to a decent job that pays a living wage. So you give everyone free, or you give everyone jobs, and most of that is faked through the labor force participation rate in the United States and Canada, hiding the number of truly unemployed people, but also it's vastly manipulated by the government employing people. So government owning a ton of the GDP, it's absolutely unsustainable and causes huge problems, but also where are these people working for? Are they going to create vast amounts of fake jobs like they have in so many of these countries around the world that are completely centralized? Fake jobs just to offload employment, all while hiding other unemployment in the labor force participation rate. The right to quality healthcare, it says. The right to quality healthcare is a tricky one that people are very divisive on, but let's look at the economics of it. I'm from Canada. Look, we have so-called free healthcare, but you also wait for about 12 hours in a waiting room waiting to get the care that you think you're going to get from the few nurses that are paid, because most of the money goes to treatment. But in what form is the treatment funded? Well, taxpayer money is stolen in vast amounts, and that's almost equivalent when you add all of it up to what you'd be paying anyway for that off chance that you might get sick and need that care. But then it gets transferred to these vast pharmaceutical giants, which monopolizes those pharmaceutical giants, which means there's no incentive to compete on the market for cheaper treatment, cheaper medicine, all this kind of stuff. So it brings the price up. It's what creates the problem of high medical prices in the first place, and it affects other countries like the United States and all these other countries in the world that don't have completely 100% government-run healthcare systems and insurance. So when that monopoly is created, it basically allows there to be no incentive to create better drugs or create better treatments that actually cure things, but instead these treatments are meant to prolong, or not prolong the illness, but essentially put off curing the illness and just getting rid of the symptoms. It creates vast amounts of problems with people who have really terrible, like cancer treatment, for example. A lot of that isn't even covered. Ambulance fees are often not really covered. And then you end up with an unfair market where, we have all these people on the left, big pharma is terrible, all that kind of stuff, and the prices are too high. So what we need to do is then go in and manipulate that system, steal people's money and put it into that system, which goes towards those pharmaceutical giants, which then props up those pharmaceutical giants, which creates monopolies, which brings the price higher. Oh, but the prices are high and there's monopolies, so now we need to steal more money to... It's a perpetual circle, and it's meant to fool people, because what's worse than the thought of you don't care about old people, you don't care about sick people, you don't care about babies that are sick, all that kind of stuff? It goes towards the emotional factor rather than the logical factor, which allows people to basically be irrational and accept their servitude. It's a Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution forever, and it's a really dangerous problem, because I got really sick in the United States, and yeah, it costs a lot of money thanks to other rackets around the world propping up these major companies where there's no ability for small people to come in and compete because of the size of these big companies. What was that name? Martin Shkreli or something tested those waters by bringing up the price of his patent. That's another thing, patented medication. Government patented, so ideas are patented and you can't come up with a better idea that helps people. Anyway, just to be able to get your medicine approved by the FDA, it costs something like, I forget if it was between $100 million and $1 billion. I talked to some guy who was trying to get his vitamin B17, amygdalin, and Laetrile drugs approved by the FDA. And it's just so crazy. They make sure that you cannot do that because they want to keep their monopolies running, and they want to keep those high prices high. So you have to have a deep pocket to begin with. But Also, when I got sick in the United States, it cost more, but I was treated immediately when I got in. I've gotten sick so many times in Canada where I'm in the waiting room for 12 hours. I've seen people die in the waiting rooms. People get sick and die in the waiting rooms. People always say when I'm in the United States, wow, you're from Canada? They have a great healthcare system. I'm like, you sure about that? Most of the doctors I know in Canada don't even think that it's a good system. And I know people who are also terminally ill that have dealt with hell for years in Canada. Many go to the States for treatment, even though it costs more. It's a racket, and it's meant to pull at your heartstrings because it's like, well, we need to help people that are sick and, you know, poor and all that kind of stuff. It's all a scam. It's a huge trap. Now, going back to this economic Bill of Rights or whatever, and that's a weird thing. Bill of Rights are subjective to whatever you as an individual defend, but as this bullet point says, the right to a complete education. Yeah, that's pretty convenient when you consider the right to an education, again, the government education, the right to be completely propagated and indoctrinated in these indoctrination camps you call public schools, where the government teaches children slowly and more and normalized all the time to be dependent, weak, and stupid and depend on the system, mommy and daddy government, which also, again, by being in the school system, you start to think of the school system as your mom and dad because you see them more than your own parents. That is not a right. That is an enforcement. In a lot of cases, people's children have been taken away from being homeschooled. It's horrible. The government come in and steal your children. Nope. It's the village's children. They're the village's children. They're not your child anymore. It's really, really scary, the realm of slavery we get into there. But we make it shiny and nice and magical because some people wrote some ink on paper somewhere. So, of course, it's legitimate. And we have to think of it as free this or the right to this. It's, again, a trap for the government to own you more and control you more. This is the kind of stuff that led to all those millions of people dying in the USSR. Anyway, the right to affordable housing, something that's propped up markets throughout the world and created vast bubbles and caused so much homelessness and caused so much poverty because the more the government steals from people, the more the government regulates, the more the government gives, quote unquote, the more they take away. And the more they take away, the more they destroy competition, which means they destroy innovation, they destroy value, they destroy an ability to compete currency, they destroy the ability to work hard for a living and not have it all stolen from the government, and of course they create vast inflation, a hidden tax, and the reason people have low wages, the reason people are unable to buy things or unable to afford housing is because of the government and the central banks in the first place. I mean, it's really sickening to constantly see people that are being used because they're vulnerable to perpetuate this system and make it worse on them. It's been going on since ancient Greece. When has it ever worked? But anyway, going on here. The right to a clean environment. Let us remember, government is the biggest polluter on the planet. Biggest polluter. There's no entity in the world that is more of a polluter. And going back, let's see, they monopolized Standard Oil, they propped up the big petroleum and oil giants, and then they banned hemp, they banned alternatives, they banned water engines, they banned people from coming up with their new inventions and then use a patent system as a weapon. And then they come in and say, oh, well, now the environment isn't doing too well, there's plastic in the ocean, so now we have to ban plastic and come in as the savior, while still continuing to pollute more than any other entity in the world. And now we're going to stop you from being able to make up your own mind, do your own thing, make all these crazy regulations that make it impossible to run a business. You go broke, ban plastic straws, and then start cutting down thousands, millions, billions of trees in order to make paper straws while still continuing to make plastic cups. So ridiculous. You can make plastic out of hemp and cornstalk cellulose, biodegradable, more sustainable, easier to harvest, easier to create. But the government got in the way, and now they say you need to be taxed, like carbon taxes in Canada and Norway and elsewhere. It's a complete sham, once again. Now let's move on. The right to a secure retirement. This is interesting, considering these guys are behind some of the biggest pension schemes in history. And you look at, for example, the pension shortfall, And let's look at it from the perspective of, okay, people born in 2007 are looking to live to an average of 103 years of age. That's more than half a lifetime on a pension. Comes from the taxpayers, completely unsustainable. But then the shortfall for pensions worldwide by the year 2040 or 2050 is set to be at about $400 trillion, which is more than 4 times the GDP of the entire world. So how do you pay for that, folks? I mean, what are we going to be paying 99% of our income to keep retired people on a paycheck? This is the dependency of focusing or depending on the government and the banking system to ensure your own retirement. They say, don't save for yourself. Don't be responsible with your money. We'll take care of it for you. Because surely we don't have any ulterior motives. It's a complete scam. And again, another example of how we live in a society based on dependence, weakness, servitude under the guise of free stuff, because it's more comfortable to be apathetic and depend on mommy and daddy instead of actually understand these things, understand the economics of it, and why this has perpetuated for so long, and if it works, why it hasn't ever worked yet. Oh, but Norway and Sweden, oh, the most taxed places in the world where it's impossible to afford a house and people are living on the streets, cashless society, everyone's tracked everywhere. They have carbon taxes, it's insanely expensive to fuel your vehicle. Those places, like I just debated a Bernie supporter recently at the Bernie event where I confronted Bernie Sanders, and this person was like, and she was very nice, but she's like, I depend on capitalism to live. I can't help it, because she's selling Bernie Sanders t-shirts in front of the place. But she's like, I want to abolish capitalism. And I'm like, okay, you want to abolish capitalism, but then where are you going to get your money from? You said you use capitalism to sustain yourself. And she's like, oh, well, Bernie will give us stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, where will he be taking it from? Well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, capitalism. So a bunch of capitalists he steals from to give to you. And then you abolish capitalism and you think you're going to get free stuff? No. It'll be like the USSR where they'll destroy the personal life. There's no such thing as family anymore. Everyone's your family, quote unquote, under the guise of the greater good of the greater number, collectivist mantra. You end up sharing houses with people. You end up starving. You fight over loaves of bread. You get put in firing lines if you dare to speak out against it. You're living along train tracks, waiting to take a train to the next place to drain resources from. You have no choice. If the government tells you you have to work this job, you're screwed. Basically, and this is the difference, communism and fascism are very close together. Fascism is government ownership, or the government ownership of, corporations, government control of corporations. And communism is the government is the corporation, and you work for them. Slave on the farm. You think slavery is bad, then why is it okay suddenly when it's a government that's doing it? These private plantations, that's bad, but when government does it and enforces it at a much greater scale and kills people if they resist, oh, but that's for the greater good of the greater number, so we get free things. Is that what you're willing to sacrifice, folks? Really? So I'm talking to this woman, and she's saying that, capitalism has saved her, but we want to abolish capitalism. And Bernie will give us free stuff, and it's for peace and love. And it's another example of you have become dependent. I'm like, is taxation theft? Yes. Is it hard to start a business with all these regulations? Yes. Well, Bernie wants more of them. Well, yeah, I know, but Bernie wants peace and stuff. Seriously? This economic bill of rights was going around the crowd at this event, and it was absolutely laughable, but also really scary at the same time, considering the implications, the millions of people who died in the USSR, tens of millions of people. And what about Maoist China? Over 50 million people? And every time I mention this to a communist, they're like, well, it's all laughable. You keep saying millions of people, and then they mimic me. Oh, 50 million people died. I'm like, is that supposed to be an argument? And they're like, well, that wasn't real communism, or that wasn't real socialism. And I'm like, well, you thought it was at the time when it was, quote unquote, real communism, and now it's not. The saying I often put out there is that I'll take the bait. They say, well, that's not real. We say, my side says, that's not real capitalism. What we see today, it's corporatism. It's government control over corporations. And when government gets involved, it's no longer capitalism. And then the other side says, the centralization side, the statist side says, well, that wasn't real socialism, or that wasn't real communism. Okay, well, let's take that and run with it for a second. If that's not real capitalism, if what we have today isn't real capitalism, it still saved millions of people, brought millions of people out of poverty, and made people's lives sustainable. Even when damaged and restricted and, enforced with socialist policies. Even in that case, it's brought millions of people out of poverty, even with these government propped up monopolies. So if that's not real capitalism, I would love to see real capitalism. But if what we see in all these countries wasn't real socialism, it was watered down socialism, it was watered down communism, then millions of people have died, millions, billions of people impoverished. God forbid, for the love of God, God forbid we ever see real communism and socialism. I mean, that argument, we can use that, fine. You say that's not real communism and socialism? God forbid we ever do see real communism and socialism then. Because I can't imagine how terrible it is with it not being real. Imagine how bad it would be if it was real. Anyway, we need to understand that people like Bernie Sanders comes under the guise of free stuff. We've seen this before. It sounds nice. Oh, we get free stuff. We care for people. Are you caring for people when you steal from them? Are you caring for people when you end up with a British 1960s situation of 1 for you, 19 for me, 95% taxation rate? Are you dealing with a good system when you have everyone completely controlled and in tune with the government as they bring in a cashless society and they completely control you monetarily? You're like slaves in a farm, all working together for the greater good of the greater number, but have absolutely no individual freedom. You're no longer an individual. You're owned by the state and you're a part of a great collective. It's failed every single time. And we need to defend ourselves from these centralized societies because they are incredibly dangerous. And it will be the death of humanity, the death of individualism, death of the personal life, death of love. They say peace and love. Look at Stalinist Russia. Where's the love there? You couldn't have a family. Oh, well, I'm going to get married tomorrow. Oh, too bad. You're being shipped out to be on the front lines tomorrow as we fight against rebels. Oh, you're a doctor? A great example is Dr. Zhivago. Great book, great film. Oh, you're a doctor? Well, I know you just had a baby and you got to take care of your family, but we're going to pull you away, send you out into the freezing cold Arctic, and make you tend to wounds of children 15 years old that have been shot after being forced on the front lines themselves and dragged away from their families. You think the government isn't going to take it that far? They always have. And it benefits the government to completely enslave us and enforce their rules on us. Why would they not do it this time? Government is a cancer and it always grows. Collectivism is a cancer. Collectivism is a cancerous cult of emotional irrationality. But the only thing that gives it any power is our belief in that system. So are you going to perpetuate that belief? Or are you going to resist the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, repeat under the guise of good feelings and, help and, kindness and peace? No peace there. Slavery is not a peaceful thing. It's a terrible thing. And we keep marching right into it. We must, in this age of information, ensure that we do not let this get perpetuated. We break free as free individuals, free human beings. You are free. The only thing that takes that away is the government. The government cannot give you freedom. They can only take it away. Start acting free. Disobey. Rule yourself. Decentralize. Free your mind. Protect your family. Protect yourself. Stop falling for the propaganda. Nothing is free. Anyway, until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right, guys, that was a bit of a long-winded one. But you got to go into all these things, right? When you go into these problems, they're pretty deep problems. So anyway, Sophia's Emporium says, thus the wipe and the reset. Bingo, Josh. Thank you. I'm just looking through some of these comments. Again, super chats help a lot as we're being completely demonetized here on YouTube. Make a big difference to keep me up and running, as well as the other independent medias. Cody Hare, Josh, insights on the global currency reset, please. We will be going into that more deeply soon. John Snyson is coming here later today in a couple hours, actually, or an hour or so. And we're going to do a whole bunch of videos, reports on that subject, actually. I'm getting really tired, so I'm looking. We got a video. I'm going to do a video here on YouTube. There's some new announcements out, and it's kind of hilarious. The level they'll go to propagate this nonsense that they're doing the right thing for us by deleting channels and demonetizing everyone. It's crazy. Anyway, get with it here. Wake up. Just nonstop lately, so I'm just having a hard time keeping it together. All right. Cody Harris says, Josh, thanks for answering. By the way, I went on the Egypt trip with Brian Forrester, and he mentioned you a lot as his friend. Great. I really appreciate that. Brian is amazing. He's one of the most interesting people I have ever met, and most interesting people I've ever seen who's walking the walk instead of just talking. It's incredible the work that he does. So I'm honored that he mentioned me at all. I've been a fan of his for years. I have his books, a few of them. He's got like 36 books or something crazy like that, so I don't have all of them, I'll admit, but he does pretty incredible work. Again, that's an honor that he mentioned me. Anyway, I'm going to get into another report here. Let me just load it up. I got 1 billion tabs open, as you could probably see when I go to the screen sharing thing. I'm going to do the economic ones with John Snyson after. It's hard to find these. 60 laws, environment, Trudeau. Oh, here we go. All right. And by the way, again, Super Chats go to the top. They help a lot, guys. Anything you guys can do to help us stay alive right now, we're basically depending on Super Chats. We're not getting money anywhere else for the most part. We're basically being bankrupted right now. So I'm living off of scraps at the moment. So anything that helps, I really, really, really appreciate it. And again, for anyone interested, we do take tips in Bitcoin, and we have other addresses linked below the video. Super Chats are great. Subscribestar, GoFundMe, Patreon, all that kind of stuff. And this is our Bitcoin address. Anyway, let's get to the next report here, if I can keep my head on straight. All right, we all know about the recent attack on independent media, demonetization, censoring, something that's been perpetuated or normalized slowly like an incremental frog boil for quite some time now. Well, as this CNBC propaganda article says, Google CEO, YouTube is too big to fix completely. Now, I want to elaborate on this a bit after, but first I'm going to go into the article. Speaking in an interview, as it says, in an interview with CNN's Poppy Harlow recently, Google CEO Sundar Pichai said YouTube is too big to completely fix the site's problems with harmful content. YouTube, which is owned by Google, has come under fire in the last couple of years as controversial content from deniers of the Sandy Hook shooting to supremacist content has continued to exist despite the company's attempts to filter it out. Harlow asked Pichai whether there will ever be enough humans to filter through and remove such content. And I quote, we've gotten much better at using a combination of machines and humans, Pichai said. So it's one of those things. Let's say we're getting it right 99% of the time. You'll still be able to find examples. Our goal is to take that to a very, very small percentage, well below 1%. Pichai said Google probably can't get that to 100%. Any large-scale systems, it's tough, Pichai said. Think about credit card systems. There's some fraud in that. Anything when you run at that scale, you have to think about percentages. But Pichai added that he's confident we can make significant progress and that enforcement will get better. He also said that Google wishes it had addressed the problem sooner, since many of the videos have been running for years. And I quote, there's an acknowledgement we didn't get it right, he said. We are aware of some of the pitfalls here and have changed the priorities. So there's a lot to this story here, and let me try to break it down a bit. So what they're basically saying in this article is that people are desperate for YouTube to start censoring everything and controlling everything, as if people are too stupid to decide by themselves what they watch and do not watch. This notion that we need this mommy and daddy to do things for us, to arrange what we see and do not see, to keep us from being triggered, it gives me this idea maybe YouTube should have the safe space YouTube and then free for all YouTube. Why is that not a possibility? Because they're trying to control the narrative. Look, they make it look like everyone wants this to happen. We need censorship. We need control of the narrative on YouTube. We need the mainstream media to essentially take over YouTube, as we see now when we search up things. Even if the mainstream media video gets 1,000 views and my video on the same subject gets 100,000 views, they'll only show the Fox News, CNN, CNBC, CBC, BBC, all that content at the top. And there's a reason for that, because the mainstream media is desperate. The government's desperate to withhold their or uphold their narratives and fool people further and propagate and indoctrinate people further, instead of the school system for children. Adults regurgitate whatever, mommy and daddy on the news tell them. So this notion that people are desperate for that is nonsense. You talk to almost anyone and they're like, this is scary what YouTube's doing. This is scary what Twitter and Facebook are doing. This is scary that they're just deleting tens of thousands of channels. They're demonetizing tens of thousands of channels, and they're like, this is just the beginning. Us in independent media are getting stifled. Dan Dix of Press for Truth got his channel completely demonetized. And then they took down videos where he attacked pedophilia. He was going against he was talking about how terrible pedophilia was. And the video just got removed from YouTube. It's some kind of hate speech while he gets demonetized. Yet the number one channels on YouTube are children running around in bikinis and stuff, which is perpetuated by pedophilia, and it's sick, and YouTube doesn't take that down. If they actually cared about that, they wouldn't take that down. Or they would take that down if they actually cared about it. But instead, they take down videos attacking pedophilia. What does that tell you about the people that are at the heads of companies like Google? Where the priorities are. They're like, well, we need to censor a bunch of content because children are being taken advantage of. Okay. So you take down a bunch of videos attacking pedophilia and leave up all the videos of children running around in bikinis that have, for some reason, millions and millions of views on YouTube? By the way, where are these parents at where they're like, oh, my child, for some reason, has millions of views on their video for no known reason? Huh, weird. I wonder if it has something to do with them running around in a bikini. It's so sick. These are the people that are controlling the narrative. And if you're not worried about that, if you're not concerned for your children and the future of humanity when that's the case, then I don't know what to tell you. But the vast majority of people are against what YouTube's doing. And the media, because of media benefits, because people were leaving the mainstream media for YouTube and Facebook for years, they're benefiting from it by getting pushed to the top of all the categories on YouTube now so that they get their viewership back. It's not going to work. People naturally left the mainstream media years ago because it's it's a terrible entity that no one believes anymore. People don't believe the mainstream media anymore. It's gotten us into countless wars, led to millions of people dead. Look at this article out of Zero Hedge from May. CNN lays off staffers after massive ratings drop. And after the whole Russia investigation finished up, they're like, oh, yeah, I guess we'll just go on to something else that doesn't involve Russia now that we've been proven wrong. But, I mean, this is another example. They perpetuate war on both sides. They play people against each other. Fox News, CNN clash people against each other with both wrong statist collectivist sides from both sides of the spectrum, which is really a circle. It's not right or left. The whole spectrum's a circle. But then people leave, so they go to YouTube, Facebook, and what do? Well, we got to uphold the military-industrial complex. We got to uphold the monetary system's propaganda arm. We got to uphold the public school system propaganda arm. This regurgitation of need for dependence on the state as mommy and daddy. They need to do that, so they're like, oh, well, let's completely censor YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all these things under the guise of stopping hate speech and stopping terrible things. You talk to most people, it's like 1% of the public actually gets triggered over things, gets vastly offended over things with this whole hate speech stuff, which isn't even properly defined. It's anything that people disagree with personally, really, at this point. But you see all these people get triggered by it, but that's only like 1%. And somehow the media is like, and the government's like, well, we can benefit a lot from this, so let's push this to the top of the agenda and try to make people regurgitate that this is a problem. People don't really care about all these things, but they get people to regurgitate it so that they could perpetuate their system of dependency and apathy. We need someone to cover our ears for us, cover our eyes, cover our mouth. Look at what Zuckerberg did with Facebook about a year ago. He sent everyone a message basically saying, look, Facebook isn't good for the psyche. So we're not going to let you see business pages anymore. It's going to be just for family. And it's like, excuse me, I can decide these things on my own. I'm independent human being. If I don't want to see something, I could just not see it, But, of course, it's not about what actually benefits us. It's about what benefits them. So they're like, yeah, we're doing this for good. Meanwhile, Zuckerberg's in China, helping them build a social credit system, facial recognition, cashless society system where everyone's on one grid, completely controlled, watched everywhere they go. And with their credit scores, if they criticize the government, they can't go into certain restaurants, they can't leave the country, they can't fly on planes. And if they do, if it's at a certain level, they have a high-pitched blasting high-pitched sound that goes in your ear just to make you feel irritated and sick. I mean, think of this is the same guy that's working on that system over there. Oh, but he wants what's best for people in the United States and Canada and Britain and all that. We're doing things for the good of people's psyche. No, you're doing things to help the government control the populace, and so is Google. And then you see these propaganda stories in the media that I'm pretty sure are probably paid for by Google, in my opinion, Alphabet or something. By the way, all FANG stocks are failing. But they perpetuate this so that they have these media articles saying, well, everyone's so concerned that someone's talking about 9/11 on a video, and they say it might be an inside job, so we got to stop their channel from existing and people from hearing it because it's what's good for everyone. What's good for everyone is a healthy ability to decide your own fate in your own life. Not have some people that you don't know in Silicon Valley telling you, or China for that matter, telling you, you cannot hear this, you cannot see this, you cannot talk about this. Imagine how stupid they think you are, folks. So people ask me, what are your solutions? Well, there's alternatives, tons of alternatives. BitChute, BitTube, U.community. You got Minds, you got STEEMIT and DTube and DLive, and you got, Voice.com, which is coming out now, and all these different things. But here's my issue, and I like all of them, but here's my issue. It's an echo chamber. One of the great things about YouTube is that I can reach people outside of my echo chamber. I could reach people who disagree with me. I cannot do that on most of these these platforms, these alternatives, and what they're trying to do is divide the conversation. So on YouTube, I can actually reach people, even though I'm completely shadow banned, and they keep me out of the suggestion videos in most cases, and from even our viewers, you the viewer, from seeing us in most cases, even if you click to be notified, and they are unsubscribing 1,000 people a week from our channel on average, and we have to keep it up. But on YouTube, I'm able to reach people that disagree with me, that people that have never heard of these subjects before. And that is a beautiful thing. That's how you educate people. Not talking to people who already agree with you. I love talking to people that already agree with me, and that's a huge part of it. But the most important is reaching people outside of your bubble. How do you educate if you cannot actually educate? If you're just talking to people that already agree with you. So that's my reason for not completely leaving YouTube yet, is because we still have an opportunity to reach some people and hopefully wake them up. Independent media has stopped wars. If the Iraq War happened under these pretenses today, people would be like, nah, that's nonsense. We're not buying that story for a second. It would have been minimal in comparison. Like we saw with Syria and everyone not buying the chemical gas attack by Assad. Like we're seeing with Iran right now, and no one buying the Gulf of Oman incident that's very eerily similar to the Gulf of Tonkin incident in Vietnam. And how the government perpetuates all this stuff. We have information at our fingertips, and being able to bring that to people that don't agree with us is important. But if we all go to these platforms, oh, it's crypto-based, are we getting everyone from 8 years old to 80 years old who are not aware of these things to see these things on these platforms, on these crypto platforms, or are we creating our own little echo chambers? Everyone stays behind on YouTube that doesn't care about all these things, that just wants to watch makeup videos. Well, people that already agree with those, what we're talking about, move to these other platforms. That's dangerous, guys. So here's what you can do. The most important thing right now to uphold or perpetuate the ability for independent media to thrive and flourish and bring people information is money. They're trying to scare us and create self-censorship, basically, using monetary means, trying to bankrupt us. The best way to get around that is for the individual, the viewer, to help us out in any way if they can. Like $1 a month. If every subscriber gave $1 a month to one of us medias, in my case, that would be about $127,000-$128,000 a month. Now I know that's not realistic, but that's a point. If everyone gave just one single dollar a month, think of the difference that would make. It would change the scope of independent media forever. We wouldn't have to worry about monetization at all. We can speak. We can bring our message to the next level. We can override mainstream media with money like that. With no money, I've managed to get more viewers in many cases than CBC, which gets $1 billion in taxpayer money in Canada. They're mainstream media. With almost no money, I've managed to get more viewers than them. We're trying to change a narrative here to, the ability of self-sustainability, independence, freedom, truth, actually exploring these issues, debating these issues, having conversations. Mainstream media doesn't want that. They want controlled conversations, or they want controlled narratives. And they are trying to crush us, and the government's trying to crush us, and this whole massive complex that combines all these arms of government and banking, etc., want to ensure that we do not have the right information, and they make us stupider, they make us weaker and more dependent. So if everyone gave $1 a month, we have Subscribestar, $4.99 a month, US dollars, by the way, gets you subscriber-only content. We're going to be working on that right away. Subscribestar link below. GoFundMe below. Patreon below. Bitcoin addresses, crypto addresses below. I mean, this is incredibly important. This is what will keep us alive. So it comes down to you guys. If you support our ability to break through that thick wall of propaganda and continue to bring that message to the next level, when all these mainstream medias and governments are desperate and they're scared because they know that we are winning this information war. If you want to keep that going, it comes down to you as individuals helping keep independent media alive. If not myself, Press for Truth, We Are Change. One of these independent media is Ford Fisher from News to Share, who also got demonetized recently. Comes down to the viewer. And it always has, really. We do free content, and we're happy to do it, and I've done it for a long time, and for many years I didn't make a cent. And I will always do this one way or another. But it would be a lot easier to do it if I was able to eat. So, this is an 18-hour-a-day process. We work all day, every day to bring you guys content. So if you guys can help us in any way, 50 cents, $1 a month, anything, that is what will keep independent media alive, regardless of the demonetization and the censorship. With enough money, you can easily get around that censorship. You can easily get around that shadow banning. And we're seeing that happen in a lot of cases. Look at Steven Crowder, the amount of money that guy makes. He's getting around all of the censorship by YouTube and everything like that. Like he's still getting his message out there. He's got a crazy amount of viewers more than ever. So I don't know. Anyway, we will continue to cover this. This is out of a desperation move by the government and all these entities to try and stifle our voices, and we will not be silenced. We will never be silenced. We will always be here to bring you information. We will always be here to have conversations. We will always be here to bring you the news in a way that the mainstream media doesn't bring it to you. Not bring you fear, but solutions. Not bringing you propaganda that perpetuates mass murder and war by the hand of the state, but giving you the evidence, the information you need to make your own decisions and break free from the system of control, the system that's built to control your every move, to watch your every move, to ensure that you're weak and stupid and dependent. And we know you, the viewers, are not weak, stupid, and dependent. You are free human beings, and we need you now more than ever. Anyways, until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right, guys. Let's see. Rika the Hopeful Volunteer said, I can't stand Crowder. He shouldn't be censored, though. No, there's a lot of stuff I don't like about Steven Crowder. But nonetheless, no one should be censored. My whole thing is, if you're like a Nazi or a KKK guy, even you should be able to talk, and then people will decide on the market as they do that, wow, this guy's a dick. And he'd be kind of an outcast in society, as he should be. But, I don't know. My point is that one way or another, we need to break through this wall. We need to be able to speak freely, and people get more and more frustrated, more and more divided when they're unable to speak. They're unable to communicate. It makes people angry, and it causes conflict. So we need to ensure that this doesn't perpetuate. Anyway, thank you, everyone. I see a lot of people commenting. I'm going to try and get through some of this. Super chats help. Again, guys, any super chat we can get really helps. Seriously, I cannot say it enough. It's what keeps us alive right now because monetization isn't doing very good. And I don't know, maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months, we'll be 100% demonetized, and I don't even know how we're going to do it. We'll manage one way or another, but we can't do it without you guys. Oh yeah, the Liberty Advisor, Tim Pashot wrote, you're just going to take our money while you gallivant around in hostels and people's couches? Yeah, people are like, oh, you're traveling all over the place. I'm like, yeah, it costs more money to stay in one place than to travel. That's something that people don't understand a lot of the time when they don't travel a lot. When you're moving from place to place, you're actually spending less money than if you're staying in one place. And I was staying in a hostel where I had cockroaches on my face in the middle of the night in Morocco-Mauritania border. It's just horrible place, garbage everywhere. It's just horrible. Then I'm like looking for couches to crash on in New York and everything, and everyone's like, oh, you're going to New York City. I'm like, yeah, and I have no money. That's why I'm looking for couches to crash on. Anyway, a lot of people don't understand how that works, but whatever. Vention MGTOW says, well done, 5 USD Bitcoin tip. I'd tip more often if you get a tip in me account so I could send tips using the Lightning Network. Yeah, okay, well, I'll get that. I got a lot of options at this point, and my only thing is, like, at the end of videos, I don't want to be like, donate to this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and like 40 minutes go by, and this, and this, and this, and here's another QR code, here's another one. I mean, it's just too in your face, for people, and it's obviously, it's over the top, so I'm just being careful with how many options, because if I give too many, it's just outrageous looking after a while. Patty Cakes Patty Pie says, what do you think of XRP? If you don't buy now, you won't get rich. Well, I don't know about that. There's many ways to get rich in the crypto world, but XRP I'm not a fan of at all, but I also do think there's a lot of bullishness in XRP because of the use of XRP by the banking system. So I don't support it personally, but I understand why people invest in it because, yeah, you can make money out of it, but that's because the banking system is using it, and the banking system is going to go down. And what happens then? You have a you-know-what coin, crap coin. But yeah, let's see. Foxcoid says, how long they go print more USA dollars? What do you think? When all start end? I'm kind of confused on what you're saying, but I think I know what you're getting at. How long will they print? They will print until they can't print anymore. That's always the way it's been. And the monetary system will collapse. It has to, inevitably. And it's been pushed off so much. It's crazy. It's unbelievable that it's still moving at this point. But I'm going to be talking with John Sneisen real soon in upcoming reports that we're going to be filming later today regarding how we will have a lot of, let's see, for example, a lot of news articles, a lot of people are talking about they're going to lower interest rates. Well, we just saw that in Australia. This is not a good sign. It's a domino effect, guys, and that's going to lead to us falling off a cliff because they've been doing whatever they can to prop up the interest rates as high as they can because they know they're going to have to drop them and they don't want to go negative. But they will go negative. They cannot escape it. I believe at this rate, if they drop it even at the rate that they did between 2008 and 2012, it would be like what was it, 2.5, negative 2.5%, but they'll be dropping it a lot more than that. So Timpachot wrote $11.7 trillion in negative interest rate bonds. Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. So anyway, yeah, that's a huge issue. We'll be reporting on that right away. I'm trying not to put too much energy into it right now. I'm really tired. I'm waiting for John to get here so we can feed off each other and go into that at a deeper perspective. Also, we have Float coming up. FLOTE. Tim was mentioning having a page with all the donation options. I think we're going to be doing that with Float. FLOTE. I believe float.io. I don't know. But you'll find it. Our friend Kingsley Edwards is working on Float. I got a super chat from Alex Vasquez, who sent $2. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It's awesome. They wrote, do you check your likely spam comments for legit? Honestly, with the amount of comments that are coming down, I don't know. Sometimes I do when I get a chance. I don't know when the last likely spam comment was. I see the last one was from you. It says check your spam comments for legit comments. Yeah, YouTube likes to call everything spam. That's for sure. I'm just scrolling up here to see if there's any more. I don't see any others. Oh, I saw that Rodrigo Ambrisi from Dash Dinero Digital wrote hi from Dash Brazil earlier. If he's still watching, hello, Rodrigo. He's going to be speaking at AnarchoVegas coming up right away. AnarchoVegas is in Las Vegas. We just did a video with G. Edward Griffin on this event coming up. It'll be July 19th and 20th will be Candles in the Dark, as well as July 20th will be the Free Ross benefit with Lynn Albrecht. And then July 21st will be the conference itself. We've got a lot of amazing speakers, including G. Edward Griffin and Jeff Berwick. We got people like Bo of the Fifth Column, Lark and Rose, Amanda Rockowitz. Man, we got so many people. We got Luke Radowski, Ford Fisher, Dan Dix. We got myself, Rodrigo Ambrisi. We could go into it all. There's a ton of people on the website. Make sure to check out AnarchoVegas.com. And also, when you're buying tickets, save 10% by using promo code WAM. That's WAM. I definitely suggest you guys come out to this conference if you can. It's going to be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. I love Las Vegas. It's a great place to be. And of course, it's following Freedom Fest. Freedom Fest ends the day before I think it ends on July 20th, and then July 21st, here we are. Vention MGTOW had a comment held for review, and it says, to Patty Cakes, Patty Pie, I wouldn't wipe my, you know what, with XRP. Yeah, I wouldn't either. But, yeah, I mean, if people want to invest. I never understood, like, a lot of people are like, how dare you own Bitcoin? You should own gold and silver. And I'm like, I do. But I don't understand why people are so insanely caught up in what other people are choosing to invest in. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, why do people care what other people invest in? It's their lives. You do your own thing. Anyway. Sophia's Emporium says, get right and fair, not rich. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting rich. You can do a lot of great things with money. And there will always be money, and without it, there's no real model of exchange. And there's no incentive for people to innovate and create. I mean, what people might do it for free and for no reason. There's Teslas that come about every now and then. But, I mean, overall, it would incredibly stifle the rate of innovation and productivity. And wealth creates a lot of great things. It's power and it's the use of force that are the problems. Don't blame the rich, blame the rich people that do bad things. A lot of the poor people would do those bad things if they had the power as well, and it's the power that gives you the problems. There'd be a lot more rich people or wealthy people without the state, without the banking system, though, today. But number one, yeah, you can't bring it with you. So focus on being a good individual, a good human being to other people, and treating people with respect, and ensuring that you leave this world a better place than you entered it. It's a good model to go by. Anyway, we are an hour and 24 minutes into this live stream. So I think that we're going to wrap it up now. We got lots of reports coming up, and I got to travel back to Vegas in the next 2 days. And then I got to go to San Francisco for this Bitcoin 2019 conference. And then back to Vegas for Freedom Fest, and then AnarchoVegas. Then I'm not sure about August, but in September, I'm going to Anarchadelphia in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I also use promo code WAM, W-A-M, to buy tickets to that if you're going. And then I think I'm going to Turkey. And then in October, I'm going to the Winnipeg Crypto Conference. Again, promo code WAM, W-A-M, for that. Winnipeg Crypto Conference, a lot of interesting speakers there, including David Morgan and Rodrigo Ambrisi as well. A few lots of interesting people. And then I finally have an area of time leading up to I'm almost for it's crazy, Anarchapulco. There's so many Anarcha events now. Leading up to Anarchapulco in February, where I don't have anything to do, which is amazing. I'm loving it because I can actually focus on just producing good content instead of running all over the place, because it's really frustrating after a while. So anyway, I appreciate everyone tuning in. Really appreciate the super chats. The super chats have helped a lot. Again, thank you. My name is Milk, and thank you, Alex Vasquez, for the super chats. Really appreciate it. Keep us alive. Help us keep ourselves up and running. Makes a huge difference. So anyway, until next time, make sure to press the like button on this video. Keep it up in the ranks. Helps with algorithms. So if you haven't pressed like on the video yet, please do if you're signed in. We'll be back at you with a lot more news stories right away. I'm working on that documentary out of Mauritania. It's killing me, but I'm going to get it to you guys. It's just a lot of work. 30 hours of footage that I'm editing down. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.